Friends, let's talk about the Reiki Precepts. Specifically, what in the world do they have to do with healing? Friends, welcome back to Heartscapes, where we're learning the system of Reiki to live lives that are rooted, spacious, connected, and that provision us for the journey back home to ourselves. My name is Michaela. Welcome back. So, this question of what in the world do the precepts have to do with healing is a question that I myself asked 10 or so years ago when I first started studying the system of Reiki from its Western origins. In that first class, we were presented with this nice list of, fine qualities to find in a human: not being angry, not worrying, being grateful, being diligent, being compassionate. These are all good things. But I was here in this Reiki class to learn how to heal people, right? To learn how to channel energy to other people to heal their body and their mind and their heart. And maybe myself too, but that really wasn't an emphasis at the time. Little did I know. That's actually the entire point. But these precepts were presented in a way that felt really awkward and disjointed. They were presented as an important element of the system, something Mikao Usui, the founder of Reiki, emphasized, found to be very important, and taught to his students. And yet they weren't put into context really at all with what we were learning about hands-on healing practices, energy, movement, and such. They were like disjointed halves of something that didn't even create a whole. And that always confused me, didn't sit well with me, and it ultimately led me to dig into the origins of Reiki because I knew that there had to be more to this system. It was a system from Japan, but we weren't really learning anything about its Japanese-ness. And I suspected that the Reiki precepts, which were just kind of hanging out over here on the side of our Western Reiki training, possibly had something to do with it. Of course, what I would learn later through my study, through my research, and ultimately through my practice is that the Reiki precepts truly are the foundation of the entire system. All of the rest of the elements in the system, including that delicious hands-on healing practice that Western Reiki so emphasizes, are all there to help focus our mind and guide our attention, guide our thoughts, our feelings, and our actions towards embodying those precepts in daily life. And that emphasis on daily life is important because, as I often say, if our spiritual practices don't impact our day-to-day experiences within challenges, within joys, and within mundanity of the day-to-day, then it is of little usefulness to us. And what I realized in studying not only the Reiki precepts, but the whole system from the perspective of its origins, is that the whole system of practice truly is rooted in our day-to-day experience. And it feels a little bit paradoxical to say that because it's also true that the system of Reiki is essentially an enlightenment practice. And for me, as a Westerner, being introduced to the concept of enlightenment in my childhood alongside Christianity, which had these very specific images of heaven and angels and God, it was natural that I kind of associated these two things together and imagined that enlightenment was this grand, gold-studded, sparkling, heavenly experience. And it took studying and practicing and living deeply with the system of Reiki to realize that enlightenment is about how we live our life while we're here in our daily life. It's about how we feel, how we think, and the actions that we take in the day-to-day that are different than the way we often experience life. But because we're typically so very distracted from the essence of life, it's a remembering and a reclaiming of the essence of being alive, being a part of the whole wide web of life, being a spark of light in the universe full of stars, and bringing that celestial light into an earthly form that lives a life. And there's such incredible grace and beauty in that. and incredible grace and beauty in the way the system of Reiki and its Buddhist origins can guide us in a step by step, day to day experience of embodying elements of enlightenment little by little, flash by flash in our daily life. It's not an either or game. It's not a you're either here or you're enlightened. It is a journey. And the Reiki precepts so explicitly give us the key to that journey by beginning with just for today. This concept of just for this moment that gives us the grace to assess how we're feeling and thinking and acting in this moment, to give us a guide on what we might shift towards to step more towards our true self, towards our spark of light, and then to make choices just in this moment to move in that direction. And if we experience a genuine moment of confronting a obstacle without fear or anger, then we've had a moment of an enlightened experience. And those moments add up over time. It's an incredibly gracious and compassionate way of thinking about something that otherwise, for me, has always been incredibly overwhelming. Now, what I wanted to do in this conversation, and the whole point I turned on the camera today, is that what's been really helpful for me is to see these things at work in my daily life. What are the mundane moments that were made much different than they might normally be because I have these practices? And it's often not only the simplest practices that bring us the greatest transformation in our life, but it can also be the simplest moments in life when applied with these practices that can have the greatest effect. So, all of that being said, I wanted to just share a story with you about something that happened recently where I could so clearly see and experience and feel the impact of being in relationship and practice with the Reiki precepts on an otherwise stressful situation. Just to give you a little bit of an example of how this can look. And I encourage you to think about other situations in your life that were similar or had similar elements, and maybe places where you naturally, without even thinking about it, might have shifted your perspective by utilizing something that is reflected in the precepts, or places where you might want to choose to do so in the future. Intentional application of the precepts consistently over time is what gets us to the place where we spontaneously apply these practices without even having to think about it in stressful moments. As I always say, we have to practice consistently in moments when we feel neutral so that the practice is available to us without having to think about it when things are difficult. So, let me give you an example. The other day, I had to take a flight. It was a relatively short flight from Seattle, where I was visiting a friend, back home in Central California. It was, late afternoon, so an easy flight to get to, quick flight. Figured it would be, a simple, straightforward transaction, similar to, any other flight that I've taken. I guess I have been lucky to not have run into too much airport drama generally in my life, knock on wood. So maybe I was due a little bit of airport drama. So I arrived at the Seattle airport. My plan originally was to check my suitcase and to take on the two carry-ons, my backpack and a canvas tote bag in which I had a box of paints. Why in the world was I traveling with a box of paints? Well, my friend and I had hit a bunch of garage sales while we were visiting, and somebody was selling this box of paints that were, little bottles like this, most of them full, perfectly good paint, selling it for like $2 or something. And my kid had just told me last week that she was almost out of paint. So I'm like, this is great. I will get her this box of paint. It'll be like a little souvenir, something she needs, $2. Fantastic. It was in a plastic box, like that big box, kind of lid that snaps on, but not really tight. All these little bottles, maybe 30 or 40 of them. It was a bunch. And in my mind, each of those bottles was within the liquid size guidelines that is in place at the airport. Each one was not too big as far as those guidelines go. I figured I was in the clear. Perhaps, dear watcher, you've already noticed my fatal flaw here. Individually, they were within the amount of liquid you're allowed to take on a plane, but collectively, all 40 of them vastly exceeded this deadline or this guideline. I did not think about that. So I go in, I check my bag. It's a relatively inefficient system at the Seattle airport. Seattle airport, get yourself together. This was not an efficient system, at least not at the Alaska Airlines counter. But I got my suitcase checked. I headed off to the security clearance, which was clear on the other side of the airport. Quite a walk. That's okay. I had plenty of time and I needed to get some steps in, so no worries. I get to the security line. It's not too long. I'm feeling good. This is going to be smooth. I get through. They're checking my stuff, take off my shoes. You know the drill. Run your stuff through the x-ray machine. And first thing they flag is my water bottle in my backpack. This metal water bottle I've had forever, like, I don't know, 20 years or something. I've had the same dang water bottle. It's covered with stickers. It's just, it's my water bottle. It's what I take with me. And I had forgotten to empty it. So they're like, we're going to have to empty this. No problem. Go ahead and empty it. But next, they flag that dang tote bag with those paints. And they're like, ma'am, we're going to need you to come over here. They pull that box out. And the look this guy gives me, it was both like, what are you doing? And also, gosh, I'm so sorry. He's like, you can't take this box of paints on the airplane. And I'm like, yeah, but they're little. They're within the size guidelines. And he's like, yeah, but there's like 40 of them. So you've exceeded the amount of liquid that you are entitled to on the airplane, and it's got to go. Your options are, we can toss it, or you can go back and check it. Dang it. I wasn't going to toss it. Too stubborn for that. I sure didn't want to have to go back and check it. Okay, no problem. I'll go back and check it. Go back. Now, there's even more people at the check counter. It's crazy. The people who I had seen unpacking and repacking their bags on the floor when I went through the first time, that I was like, why are they doing that? Why is there nowhere for people to sit and do what they got to do? Literally sitting in the middle of the hall, repacking bags. Now I am that person sitting in the middle of the hall, taking everything out of my backpack, putting it in that tote bag, and cramming that box of paints into my backpack, because there's no way it was going to survive going into the hull of an airplane just in the tote bag. Okay, so then I gotta go through and check the backpack. The line is now longer. Now I'm starting to get a little worried that I might be into like missing my flight territory. I get back to security, walk all the way back. Security line. The security line is now twice as long. Starting to feel a little worried, starting to feel a little irritated. Getting through. The guy is a little bit snappy. You know how like some TSA agents are just in a bad mood? They're kind of taking the like somebody here might be a terrorist thing, like just a little bit too intensely, right? I'm not saying don't take it seriously. I'm just saying like they're like looking at you like, is it you? No, it's not me. I just had paint. Get through. As I'm going through, I remember, dang it, I never got my water bottle back. Now I'm irritated about that. Ask around, hey, excuse me, when I came back through here earlier, someone took my water bottle. They never gave it back to me. Is there a lost and found? This guy doesn't know, sends me to this guy. This guy's like, yeah, maybe it got put in the office. Go ask that guy. I asked that guy. Anyway, you get the point. I'm just asking all these people about my water bottle. And now, again, I'm stubborn. I'm like, I didn't go through all this to lose this water bottle with all the stickers I've collected for 20 years. I'm not having it. Not today. So I just keep asking. And eventually I get to this group of agents at the very end of security. And they are clearly not having a good day. And I, excuse me, asked my question about the water bottle. And there's one woman who's clearly sick, okay, coughing, does not look well, should not have been at work. She looks at me with glazed over eyes, kind of shakes her head like, dang it. She goes, what does the bottle look like? Silver metal, it's covered with stickers. Off she goes. She comes back a few minutes later. She's got my water bottle. Okay. Now I've got all my stuff checked, got my water bottle. I'm through security. I get to the airport gate, plenty of time before my flight. I sit down, and all I can do is crack up laughing. So my question is, at that point, after going through all that irritation and frustration, nothing terrible, right? Nothing horrible or calamitous, just irritations, right? Little annoying things. Got myself more worn out than I'd hoped to be, had a little worry about missing the flight. But, ultimately little things. But these kinds of little things can add up to feeling really bad. They can add up to walking onto that plane feeling stressed, walking onto that plane feeling angry, feeling disgruntled about other people, about, guidelines that make us have to do things that we don't want to do, right? But instead of all of that, I felt lighthearted. I felt humorous. I could see the levity in the situation, the ridiculousness of it, and enjoy that. Why was that? Well, you've probably guessed, dear viewer, it is because of the Reiki Precepts. As I sat there waiting for my plane, plenty of time, I was just kind of reflecting back on that experience because I had the question, why do I feel good right now when I just had this totally irritating experience? And, when we have these questions pop up, why am I experiencing something surprising? It can be easy to just let it go and be like, whatever. There's great value in reflecting back and really being with the question, why is this experience different than I expected? And so when I reflected back, I played that whole scenario back through my mind like a movie. Key moments stood out to me. So the moment when I'm told that I can't take the paint, and the moment when the TSA person was grumpy at me, right? Moments when irritation or frustration or even anger could come forward, right? And irritation and frustration are subsets of anger, right? They're like junior anger, right? So they're in that same spectrum. Without even thinking twice about it, just for today, I anger not, had come to mind. In that moment, took a breath, let go of that anger. It's giving me information. It's pointing my attention that this matters. The paint matters. It's probably part of the stubbornness that let me kind of go through all the steps that was necessary to not just throw away the paint, right? So the anger had a purpose. That irritation, that frustration had a role to play. It gave me energy to do what I had to do to maintain the paint. But I didn't have to hold on to it because just for today, I anger not. And as I've gone over in other videos related to the precepts, that's not saying don't ever be angry. It's saying hold your anger lightly. Hold it in the open, empty space of your spacious soul and allow it to diffuse. Allow it to come in and give you information and then go. So that irritation came in. It said, nope, the paints are important. Don't let them go. And then it went away. So I didn't have to be angry. What stood out to me was the moments when I started to worry that I would miss the plane. And let me just tell you, this is a confession. My usual policy around airports is that I don't want to sit in airports. I don't want to sit in airports. And so I play a bit of an airport roulette game. How close to flight time can I arrive at the airport and get to the plane on time? I've never missed a plane yet, but I have come close. But my sweet spot is I arrive at the gate in time to use the bathroom, fill my water bottle, and then get in line to get on the plane. That's my sweet spot. I often hit it. But because of that, there's no wiggle room. So any of these kinds of delays, go back and do it again, right? Become a problem in that case. And so I naturally had worry. However, in this particular instance, my friend had insisted that I leave early because she lived on an island in the Puget Sound. There was a ferry ride involved that can have delays. So she had insisted I leave an hour early. And so just for that moment, I could release that worry. I didn't have to worry about missing my plane because I had actually had plenty of time. When I couldn't find my water bottle, I got tense about it because it was something that, while it's just a silly thing, it's also something I've had for a long time and it would have felt sad to replace it. So I had worry that I was going to lose it. Took a breath. Just for today, I worry not. That worry, that fear guided my attention to something that was important. The water bottle matters to me. Not missing the plane matters to me. But I didn't have to grip onto it. It didn't have to make me anxious. It didn't have to, make me frustrated. There was nothing I could do about it at that point, but go through the process as quickly as I could. So just for today, I worry not. Let go. That naturally and easily cycled into just for today, I am grateful. So grateful to my friend for insisting that I should leave early, for knowing, that the ferry schedule was unpredictable and that I should give myself plenty of time. All of a sudden, that irritation with the TSA folks who were, a little gruff with me and who took my water bottle and made me go back with the paints. Just for today, I am so grateful for all of those folks. They're there to keep us safe. They're running an incredibly complex system with thousands of people running through that system every day, and that runs relatively smoothly for the most part, given how many moving parts it has. And every single one of those folks there ultimately is there to keep us safe. And all of those annoying processes and procedures, whether or not we agree with them, whether or not we think that they're necessary, they are there to keep us safe. And so just for today, I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful to the woman who came to work sick, although I think she should have stayed home. She deserved to stay home when she's sick, but she was there and she went and found my water bottle. I was grateful for the guy who took the paints for giving me that sympathetic look, right? Like, I don't want to take your paints, but I got to. This is the policy, right? So gratitude easily flowed as soon as I had let go of anger and worry. And that gratitude softened my physiology, because what we know about gratitude, which has been, studied quite a bit, it's one of the most scientifically studied human emotions that there is. We know that gratitude releases oxytocin in the brain and other chemical hormones that are connected to our sense of ease and calm and well-being and happiness, and notably our sense of connection and generosity with other people. Now, that one is so significant because if we can get ourselves past worry and anger to gratitude, our relationship to every other person in the scenario, including the people who might seem antagonistic to us, softens. We feel more connected with them. As soon as I could feel, wow, I'm grateful for all these people for being here to keep me safe, they're no longer antagonists. They're no longer people who took my stuff. They're people who are running us through a process to keep us safe. I felt more connected to them, which meant that I spoke to them with kindness and with patience and with gratitude. I thanked everybody profusely. From there, just for today, I'm true to my way and my being. This one's always such a juicy precept. True to my way and my being. I live my life, I make decisions, I take actions, at least just for today, just in this moment, that are true to myself. My way and my being. My way is just my daily life, my one life in this one body, all of the experiences and choices and all the things that have happened to me. That is my way. And I want to be true to that way, to that life, to that experience, and to who I feel that I am as a person. And in this case, who I feel that I am is a kind and patient person who's willing to work within systems and structures to make things go well and go smoothly. If I hadn't been able to release the anger and the fear and get myself to gratitude, it would have been harder to be true to that part of myself. I might have let irritation creep into the way that I talk to people, which is not how I want to be. On the other side of that equation, being true to my being means being true to the truth of our being, which is that we are an interconnected spark of light in a web of life connected to all life. We are the mystery itself. We are energy. We are spirit living as this being for a period of time. And being true to my being also invites me into compassion and kindness when I am interacting with other people. and a sense of spaciousness, a sense that things are going to be okay. Even if I miss the flight, even if something else happens, it's going to be okay because there's this wider context, this wider web of life that is holding me that goes far beyond this moment of irritation. And then that final beautiful foundational precept, the fifth precept, just for today, I'm compassionate with myself and with all others. And the way that I think about this precept is not that it's the last one in a list of five, but that is the foundation for all of them. That compassion for ourselves and then flowing that compassion to others is the foundation. It's the root. I can talk. It's what makes the rest of it work and come together and function as a system. And we've talked in other videos. I won't go into it in depth here, but the linear nature of these, there is a logic to the order that they're in. However, we can work with them in a dynamic way. We might need one or the other more or less on a given day. They are interrelated to each other. And so we might need to emphasize one, we might need to enter into the precepts at compassion, self compassion, before we can get to releasing anger, right? We might need to be like, look, let me feel this compassion for myself for being so freaking irritated with what's going on right now. Okay, once I'm there, maybe I can have compassion for these people that are annoying me and causing me irritation. And then I can get to letting go of anger and fear, right? So we can use them diagnostically. And the deeper our relationship is with the precepts, the more fluent and the more effective our application of them will be. So that compassion for myself and for everybody else involved is really what kind of fueled that whole experience going. It just kind of kept me feeling more or less even keeled, feeling like things were going to be okay, feeling that I didn't have to be reactive with anybody. And ultimately, when I sat down at the gate and had that laughter come up and that amusement, that really was flowing from that deep sense of compassion for myself and everyone involved. And from that honest compassion can flow humor and just a sense of the ridiculousness of it all and being able to laugh at myself for being so dumb that I thought I could bring a giant tub of paint onto the plane when I really should have known that I could not, right? To have so much compassion for all of us unpacking and repacking our stuff on the floor at the Alaska Airlines check-in gate. It all just ultimately was funny. And I know for a fact, because of living my whole life before I found the system of Reiki, that I wouldn't have gotten there necessarily, or most likely, if I wasn't in the practice of bringing those precepts into the moment, letting them inform and guide my attention and nourish me as I am in moments that might otherwise cause frustration or stress or panic, like I'm giving a really simple example of irritating moments at the airport, but the same thing holds true in very intense and much more serious situations. When we have this relationship with these practices, they come in for us, they stand by our side, and they back us up and hold us up when things are truly, truly difficult. And again, it takes practice. Practicing with them in moments when we're more or less okay and neutral and nothing bad is happening. Practicing in moments that are just kind of annoying, kind of irritating, a little bit worrisome, so that it's ingrained in our muscle memory. It's ingrained in our psyche that we reach for these practices, the precepts and all of the other practices in the system of Reiki. We can reach for them without effort when we are truly in distress. And that's what I want for each of us, especially in these times when moments of distress are coming frequently and sometimes very intensely. We are in a time when many structures and systems that have been in place that we have been able to rely on to a certain extent are coming undone or even collapsing. And that can be terrifying. And it can be angering. and it can make it really hard to find our sense of gratitude and compassion. And it makes it very confusing to know how to be true to ourselves, our way and our being when things are falling apart. And so, friends, this story hasn't just been about the airport. It's been about this moment we're living in and the times to come when these precepts will serve us deeply. Having practices to contemplate them in a structured way that help to guide our mind, sharpen our focus and our attention in ways that nourish us and keep us resilient in difficult times. This is why we're here. This is why I'm here. This is my work in the world. This is why this channel exists. And I am here to work with this material with myself and with everyone else who wants to come along, because it matters and it is life-changing, not just at the airport, but in any struggle that comes our way. That's what I want for you. It's what I want for me. And I have experienced that it is 100% possible. It is the likely promised outcome of working with the system of Reiki. So, friends, I'd love to hear in the comments below moments that you've had when any of these precepts, even if you have heard the precepts for the very first time right here on this video, there's probably been moments in your life when the feeling of gratitude has softened the way that you might be feeling in a moment, or your ability to take a breath and let go of a fear or a worry has changed your experience of something stressful. Or there might be times in your life or things coming up that you really would like to apply these types of things to, that you want to feel these ways in those moments. Please do share them down below. Share any questions that you might have about these practices, and let's keep the conversation going. Thank you so much for being with me for a few moments of your day. I really appreciate it. I really enjoy spending this time with you. And as you go into your day, may you feel deeply provisioned for whatever is coming your way. Thanks so much. I'll see you next time. Love you. Goodbye.